Welcome back to Warpath and Wilderness, where the echoes of history collide with the timeless demands of survival. Today, we venture into one of the most harrowing chapters of human endurance, a place where the line between soldier and survivor blurred into almost indistinguishable shadow. Between 1941 and 1945, the Eastern Front became a crucible of suffering, a frozen wasteland where temperatures plummeted to minus 40 degrees Celsius, where supply lines fractured like ice beneath a boot, and where staying alive required not just courage, but cunning, improvisation, and an almost primal will to endure. This is the story of men who faced an enemy far older and more ruthless than any opposing army, an enemy that transformed landscapes into tombs and demanded that soldiers become wilderness experts or perish. Join us as we walk the frozen trails, examine the makeshift shelters, and understand the survival ingenuity that kept men alive when everything seemed determined to kill them. When the Wehrmacht rolled eastward in Operation Barbarossa during the summer of 1941, German High Command harbored a fatal certainty: the war would be won before the snow fell. Moscow would surrender. Leningrad would fall. By autumn, victorious troops would be marching through Red Square. Command issued no winter clothing. No cold weather protocols were established. The quartermasters prepared for triumph, not for survival. Then came winter, and with it came General Winter, that merciless, unnamed adversary that has broken empires and swallowed armies whole. The winter of 1941 to 1942 descended upon the Eastern Front with apocalyptic fury. Soldiers equipped with summer uniforms and issued inadequate wool overcoats huddled in trenches that transformed into frozen graves. Standard German rifle lubricants thickened and froze solid at temperatures where minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit felt like a warm afternoon. Machine gun actions ceased, mortar mechanisms locked. Tank engines, left dormant for even a few hours, became immobile masses of solidified metal and crystallized oil. Vehicles had to run constantly, consuming precious fuel or face permanent mechanical death. Water trucks froze. Food rations became inedible blocks of ice. The thermometer stopped being a mere measurement. It became a countdown timer. The human cost was staggering. Tens of thousands of German soldiers fell not to Soviet bullets, but to frostbite that blackened fingers and toes, until amputation was the only mercy available. Trench foot, that medieval plague of frozen, gangrenous flesh, claimed limbs and lives. Hypothermia crept through the ranks, stealing consciousness and warmth until men simply lay down in the snow and did not rise again. Wounded soldiers who might have survived a bullet wound perished in the cold before stretcher-bearers could navigate the frozen terrain. The Wehrmacht, built for blitzkrieg and summer conquest, was being slowly consumed by cold. The Soviet forces faced the same temperatures, yet their suffering, while immense, was mitigated by a crucial advantage: preparation born from bitter experience. The winter war against Finland had taught Moscow hard lessons about Arctic warfare. Soviet uniforms featured quilted jackets, thick felt boots, and fur hats designed for Siberian survival. Their soldiers came from a nation where winter was not an anomaly, but an annual certainty. They understood how to move through snow, how to preserve body heat, how to survive what the German army was discovering for the first time at catastrophic cost. Survival on the Eastern Front became a masterclass in improvisation, born not from choice but from the knowledge that the alternative was death. When the official supply chains failed, when winter clothing shipments stalled at transport hubs like Warsaw, never reaching the front, soldiers became hunters, scavengers, and engineers of survival. German troops ransacked the frozen corpses of Soviet soldiers, stripping the quilted jackets and felt boots from the dead. When prisoners fell into German hands, a dark calculus took hold. The uniforms were worth more than the lives wearing them, and captured men were often left inadequately clothed in temperatures that guaranteed death within hours. It was warfare divorced from mercy, survival stripped to its rawest economics. Soldiers also bartered with Finnish allies, trading alcohol and cigarettes for wool socks and mittens, items that became more valuable than ammunition. A pair of warm socks could mean the difference between functional feet and frozen stumps. When official insulation failed, soldiers improvised with whatever materials lay at hand. Newspaper, salvaged from destroyed buildings, was stuffed between layers of uniform to create air pockets and trap body heat. Straw, leaves, and even pages torn from books became makeshift insulation. Gas mask hoods, crafted from thick wool, were repurposed as face and neck coverings, transforming a tool of chemical warfare into a shield against frostbite. Men layered with the cunning of wilderness survivors, understanding instinctively what Arctic explorers have known for centuries: trapped air is the first defense against cold. Shelter became the consuming obsession. Troops dismantled civilian houses, wooden frames, doors, floorboards, anything that would burn or build. They constructed bunkers partially underground, lined with straw and covered with salvaged wood, creating small pockets of relative warmth. Portable chemical heaters and Esbit fuel tablets weighing mere ounces provided precious warmth and the ability to heat water and food without drawing enemy fire. A large bonfire was a beacon inviting sniper fire. Small controlled heat sources kept men alive while keeping them concealed. The human body itself became a survival tool. Soldiers learned to huddle together in tight groups, sharing blankets and body heat, sometimes even sleeping standing or crouched just to keep their circulation going. Rotation systems were established where comrades would wake each other every 30 minutes, forcing movement and activity to prevent the creeping paralysis of hypothermia. Men understood that sleep meant potential death. The seductive warmth of losing consciousness could honestly be a one-way journey into oblivion. Feet demanded constant, almost religious attention. Dry socks became more precious than ammunition. Soldiers would hang wet socks and foot bandages to dry wherever possible, hanging them in shelters near fires, even under their uniforms when no other option existed. The daily ritual of checking feet for signs of frostbite or trench foot became as automatic as breathing. Winter warfare pioneers understood one universal truth: an army marches on its feet, and frozen feet mean a dead army. The story of survival on the Eastern Front is ultimately a story of human resilience pushed beyond reasonable limits. It is not a tale of comfort or triumph, but of men choosing, moment by moment, to remain alive despite conditions designed by nature and circumstance to kill them. Many were German soldiers who had been promised swift victory and found themselves instead in a frozen purgatory for which they were utterly unprepared. Others were Soviet troops fighting on their home ground, defending their soil against invasion, and drawing strength from that knowledge. And beyond the uniforms were countless civilians caught in the grinding machinery of war, facing the same merciless cold, the same hunger, the same desperate improvisation to survive just one more day. What emerges from the historical record are accounts of profound sacrifice. Soldiers sharing the last of their rations so a comrade might retain strength. Men giving their coats to wounded friends, knowing it meant their own probable death. Small acts of defiance against an overwhelming force of nature and warfare. The Eastern Front tested not just military tactics or strategic brilliance, but the absolute limits of human endurance. The lessons carved into the frozen battlefields of the Eastern Front extend far beyond 1945 and far beyond the confines of military history. They speak to something primal within all of us, the instinct to survive when the world becomes hostile and resources become scarce. These soldiers, unprepared and under-equipped, became wilderness survivors by necessity. They understood insulation, shelter construction, fire management, nutrition under scarcity, and the critical importance of psychological resilience. They learned what indigenous peoples, Arctic explorers, and wilderness travelers have always known. Preparation and respect for nature are not optional luxuries, but requirements for survival. In our modern world, where supply chains can fracture in moments and natural disasters can cut off communities from assistance, the improvisation and ingenuity of these soldiers carry relevance. More than that, their willingness to endure, despite impossible odds, speaks to a fundamental aspect of human nature: the refusal to surrender, the creativity born from desperation, and the bonds formed when survival depends on the person beside you. The frozen hell of the Eastern Front reminds us that Warpath and Wilderness are not separate domains, but intersecting territories where history, human nature, and the primal demands of survival collide. It is a story told not to glorify suffering, but to honor those who endured it, and to understand the depths of resilience that emerge when civilization's comforts fall away. If you found yourself gripped by these stories of survival against impossible odds, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to Warpath and Wilderness. Join us as we continue to explore the moments when history becomes personal, when soldiers become survivors, and when the human spirit proves stronger than the elements arrayed against it. Your subscription ensures that these stories of courage, improvisation, and endurance continue to be told with the reverence and detail they deserve. Welcome to Warpath and Wilderness, where every frozen trail, every hidden shelter, and every moment of defiance carries lessons for those willing to listen.